Brother Bishop Theodore, Very Reverend Father Rector, Vice Rector, esteemed members of the teaching and non-teaching staff, Reverend Fathers, Reverend Sisters, dear students and my dear seminarians. The Jubilee brings joy to each and every one of us as we read in the book of Leviticus chapter 25. It is a moment of rendering thanks to God for having given us so much in the past 50 years. At the same time, it is a moment of praying, invoking God's blessing upon each and every one of us, and finally to take proper measure on the ways and means to look forward for the future with proper conversion. It is in this context I would like to share few things for you, though they told me the dedicated time is very short, so I'll try to be shorter than what the Father has told me. You are all theologians, you are all philosophers, intelligent, spiritually highly developed, highly practiced people. My words will be of some usefulness for you. I have chosen the gospel passage today. You are like light for the whole world. Your light must shine before people so that they will see the good things you do. I feel that every seminary formation, every theological formation should aim at that each and every one of us to become like Jesus Christ, like light for the whole world. In the year 1886, Pope Leo XIII made a prophetic declaration about the future of the Indian Church. He said, I quote the words, beautiful words, India, your children will be the ambassadors of your salvation. Why was this declaration important for us today, you might ask? Because it was made at a time in Indian history when the vision of indigenous clergy was still a distant dream. Let me give two concrete examples from the history of Mission Étranger de Paris, MEP Fathers. Bishop Melchior de Marion Braisac, about it you must have heard, the Apostolic Vicar of Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu, and Bishop Clement Bonham, the Apostolic Vicar of Pondicherry. In 1841, missionary priest Melchior reached Pondicherry with a firm resolution to consecrate all his work and thought to the formation of the local clergy. Despite his heroic efforts, he could not achieve much. As historian Siddhartha Sarma records in his book written 2022, Carpenters and Kings, he mentioned Melchior faced resistance, indifference from the clergy themselves, bishops and fellow missionaries. After 12 years of struggle with the caste system, social and economic hierarchies, interdiction from Rome, and clashes between rights, he resigned from his post and quit India in the year 1853. It is, however, interesting to note that the same Father Melchior reached the African mission and eventually founded the Society of African Mission, SMA, in Freetown, Sierra Leone. I was Apostolic Nuncio when his death anniversary was celebrated in Freetown, 150 years. all of us gratefully acknowledge the man who was thrown out from India become the star of Africa. The same star of Africa came back to India through the Antonysamy fathers. My dear brothers and sisters, there is a beauty of the church. Now coming to the second person, MEP missionary, Bishop Clement Bonham from the Rouen region in France arrived to India in the year 1824. After initially serving in Andhra Pradesh, he was made Bishop of Pondicherry in 1858. Pope Pius IX appointed him apostolic vicar with a particular mission. He requested him to visit the Christian communities across India and prepare a report on the ground realities of the Indian Church. Bishop Bonham reported that in 6 major vicariates, there was not a single Indian priest, and in 6 others, there was no seminary at all. His report was a wake-up call for the Indian Church at that particular period. My dear brothers and sisters, the formation of the local clergy was understood to be intrinsic to the birth of truly local churches. The work of the foreign missionaries, though exemplary, was only regarded as a provisional arrangement. The church was aware of the importance of the local clergy to help the Indian church took root in a context where it was still considered an outsider and associated with the colonial powers. It was in this background that Pope Leo XIII made the decision and declaration, India, your children will be the ambassadors of your salvation. This vision did produce fruits eventually. In the year 1901, only 5 of the 24 vicar generals were Indians, and only 3 of the 28 bishops were Indian, and all the 3 were from Kerala. However, by 1944, following the regrouping of the Indian dioceses and the creation of the CPCI, it was found that 33% of the bishop and 80% of the priests were Indian. By 1957, 55% bishops and 83 of priests were Indians. Now all are Indians. It's a great joy for all of us as we celebrate the 50 years of the St. Peter's Pontifical Institute of Theology. And God calls us that we should become more Indian, spiritually rooted in the culture, the needs of our people. We should ask, how did this change come about? History is the witness to the fact that the MEP Society and St. Peter's Pontifical Institute have played a huge role in this regard. Since 1658, over 4,300 missionaries from the foreign missionaries of Paris have worked across Asia and Madagascar to create new Christian communities and train local clergy. St. Peter's Pontifical Seminary, since its foundation in Pondicherry 250 years ago as the Grand Seminaire in the year 1778, its transfer to Bangalore in the year 1934 as St. Peter's Provincial Seminary, transfer of the management in 1968, and its elevation as the Pontifical Institute of Theology in 1976, This home of theological and philosophical formation has contributed largely, despite challenges, to the birth of a truly Indian clergy, more globally to a truly Indian church. My dear brothers and sisters, as our seminary's website acknowledged, this home of formation law so far contributed 3 cardinals. I do not know when other seminaries have so many cardinals. So you could be also made cardinals, those who are studying here. At least aspire for that, no problem. No. And 8 archbishops, 17 bishops, and 2,078 priests to the Indian church of this transformation has not been so easy. The Golden Jubilee celebration is a humble acknowledgement for each and every one of us to look at this history and not to be only proud, but you should walk ahead to make it much more glory. Yes, here is our task today. This Jubilee celebration is an opportunity not only to look back at the glorious past with gratitude, but also to revisit our present with discernment. I underline the word discernment. And look forward to the future with hope and vision. While we have achieved much in promoting the formation of the local clergy, are we doing enough to create a truly inculturated Indian church? First question I am asking you. What are the challenges that the church in India in its mission? I have chosen the gospel passage. The gospel mandate is so clear. Jesus wants us to be the light of the world. It is our responsibility to let the light of the gospel shine through the prism of our contextual realities to produce various possibilities for the future of the Indian church. My dear brothers and sisters, our responsibility is not to abolish or replace the law and the prophets, but to reflect and interpret their relevance and implication for our Indian context in a praxis-oriented hermeneutical exchange between the text and the context. I would like to propose for your reflection 3 meaningful criteria in a short way that have been proposed by the recently concluded Synod on Synodality, in which I too participated. The working document published on 9th July 2024 in preparation for the second session of the Synod of Bishops put forward 3 areas for our combined reflection on the synodal church of the 3rd millennium, namely synodal places, synodal pathways, and synodal relation. As our seminary completes 250 years of its foundation and 50 years of its elevation into a theological institute, let us reflect on our future mission from these 3 perspectives. These are all very important. I don't have time, but I'll make it very short. Unfortunately, it should not be in the homily, it should be outside, but I make it point so that you can reflect spiritually and profit by that. The first one, rethinking theological places. As Dr. Father Mylapore wrote in the year 1967, I quote, "It is not enough for priests to be Indians." I underline even now. Don't say I'm an Indian priest. Say something more. It is desirable and even necessary that these Indians, by their spirit and their words, by their way of their life and their way of social relation, in short by their culture, be totally Indian. I entered the word totally Indian. Father Mylapore insisted already in the year 1967. I quote, "As we know, the thirst for a truly incarnated incultural church in India is as long as the Indian church history itself. We cannot separate history from our thirst. In this regard, we know the contribution of Thomas Christians and East Syrian Christians, the pioneering works of missionaries like Robert de Mobili and Joseph Costanus Beski, the Baptist missionaries of Serampore, the creative initiative of Indian Renaissance, and the Hindu theistic movements, Christian indigenous theologians, etc. More importantly, in the years following the Second Vatican Council, the project of the formation of the local church has matured into the vision of Indianization or promoting a truly Christian reflection. In this field, St. Peter's Seminary has played its role in an extraordinary way, and I really, though I am not a student of this seminary, I congratulate you and appreciate you. Efforts in culturation, however, have been focused predominantly in this period on liturgy and doctrines in Christology and Trinity, no other sectors. In the contemporary context, we face the challenge of finding new areas for this mission of inculturation. We need therefore a shift from a unidirectional approach, that means the theologian will understand my word, from faith directly into culture, to a dialogical understanding, that means a mutually enriching encounter between the gospel and a people with its particular culture and tradition. Raymond Panikkar once said, and I've asked Pope Paul VI, Saint Pope Paul VI, I quote, to be a Christian does not have to be spiritually Semitic or intellectually Greek. He was asking the Holy Father. Further, in the year 1987, in an article entitled The Jordan, the Tiber and the Ganges, he insisted that beyond the waters of the Jordan and the Tiber, we must venture on to the waters of the Ganges. We need to continuously and constantly rethink our theological places and find new avenues and new relationships to enhance the study on theology. It is not only abstract, it should be more practical, concrete. One of the Reverend Sisters already asked, in Rome they are working for the seminar on the future of theology. She was asking me, will it be possible to think about a future of theology, because theology is about God? How can you speak about future of theology? Are you going to change God himself, or you are thinking about God? I told the sister, nothing is like that. The future of theology, how you are going to perfect yourself in the theology towards God. Not that we are going to change, make it more perfect. In a similar way, pathways. I don't want to go deeper because want of time. There also, as A.M. Mundadan proposes in his book Paths to Indian Theology, and ITA confirms in the year 2003 document Society and Church, theological research in the last 17 years of the Indian theological history has proceeded in three distinctive trends. Shortly, the spiritual contemplative approach, that is the ashrama movement, and secondly, philosophical and theological approach, or the religio-cultural approach, and thirdly, socio-political approach. While this diversity is indeed a testimony to the richness of our Indian theological heritage, we are faced with the challenge of finding new and creative pathways to promote Indian culture. contemporary contextual theology obliges us to reimagine what is mean to be Indian church today. It seems to us that this task necessarily involves evolving multiple ways of engaging in an inculturator or contextual dialogue with rapidly evolving in political field, social field, cultural dimension of our congregate reality. Faced with the discovery of new theological places beyond traditionally defined boundaries, theology is also obliged to redefine its method and way of exercising. Finally, relation. An important characteristic of Indian theological reflection has always been the priority given to dialogue, reconciliation, and relationship. We define theology not as a purely intellectual exercise of faith-seeking understanding. I repeat the word. We define theology not as a purely intellectual faith-seeking dialogue. In its triple dialogue with Indian culture, religions, and contextual realities, in the Indian Church has sought to build partnership and promote unity and integration. Dialogue is not merely understood as a rhetorical or pedagogical tool, but a genuine means of nurturing exchange and building relationship. The beautiful outcome of the synod, it will come out in the 51 pages of the document, 151 numbers. It's slightly said about this particular point. The synodal church hereafter, we do not speak about diversity in unity. We used to speak nowadays diversity in unity. In a synodal church hereafter, plurality in unity. Nothing is bad, nothing is not good, nothing is different. The God has created the whole universe and He Himself gives a certificate for Himself. God said, whatever created seems to be good. Then why do you make the diversity in unity? The word diversity disturbs very much unity. The synodal church should be a plurality in thinking, even theologically. There is a relationship you are called to continue, create in the coming Jubilee year. In conclusion, I would like to invite you, all dear brothers and sisters, to recommit to the motto of this illustrious institution of theological research, Radicati in Caritate. As St. Paul reminds us in the first reading which we have heard, we are all strengthened with power through God's Spirit in our inner being. We are called to be rooted and well established in God's love. May this golden jubilee inspire us to rethink our theological places, second, to revisit our theological pathways, and thirdly, reimagine our theological relations towards building a truly incarnated Indian church. I wish and pray this well-renowned institution be a torch bearer for all other formation centers all over India and all over world that could contribute something, making this church really incarnated Indian church. Amen.